G'day guys, and welcome back to your English Aussie. Today I'll be doing the usual tactical and statistical analysis, talking through some of the games from game week 22 from a tactical lens, and also giving you the best defenders, midfielders and forwards based off statistics, and talking through how these two things interlink. However, as a special edition for you guys this week, as I was unable to do tactics in midweek, I will be doing not one but two deep dives into one, Arsenal, and despite why having the higher XG in most of their games this season, they're unable to break down the teams as easily, and whether they'll need a striker to be able to win the league and sustain wins and the form. And Man City, discussing what has changed recently with Man City and whether Man City assets are now worth picking from an FPL perspective. I'll also be giving you the normal stats on the best defenders, midfielders and forwards. So without further ado, let's jump into the action. So first up, I've got on the screen here the tactical observations from Arsenal, Villa and Brentford-Liverpool. I think we'll start with that Brentford-Liverpool game. 2-0 to Liverpool, and not really what I would have expected overall in terms of the result. However, in terms of the way the game was played, I think a lot of things played out how we imagined. Both teams were really focused on those transition periods. Mbeumo and Wissa continued to look dangerous for Brentford in those counter-attacks and fast transitions. Mbeumo, one of the players who has the most sort of progressive carries with the ball in the Premier League. And Brentford actually defensively did something that I wasn't expecting from them, and probably shouldn't be sleeping on Thomas Frank. He's able to adapt and come up with different solutions in games. They tried to play a little bit deeper at times defensively and absorb some of the Liverpool pressure and really tried to hit them on the counter-attack. However, I did feel that Brentford actually changed their tactics throughout the game. Within their team on the field, you could see that there were some times where they decided, all right, we're not going to defend deep. We're going to try and press Liverpool, cause them problems, and just give them different problems to solve throughout the game as a team. And I thought they did that really well throughout the team, trying to change up the looks Liverpool were getting from sort of playing out from the back and getting through to their front line. Liverpool almost tried to play counter for counter with Brentford, which made it a really exciting transition game. After the Brentford sort of counter-attack, Liverpool would counter the counter-attack, which almost proved fruitful for them at lots of times, as this left Salah in sort of some of those one-on-one attacking positions. He just wasn't able to get past Sells in the end, who made one absolutely fabulous save off him. Overall, I thought it was a bit of a strange game where, looking at the end result of 2-0 to Liverpool and up to 90 minutes being 0-0, you really thought there could have been a lot of goals from both sides in that game, but Liverpool did manage to come away on top. And that is the sign of a team who are locked in on winning a title. They do have a lot of players in their team who have that title winning experience from back in the COVID days, and they are putting it to good use at the moment. If Liverpool can get over the line in some of these tough games, they will have a great chance of winning the title. From a Brentford perspective, tough loss to take at home, but I thought ultimately they did play well. I think their forward line still looks great from an FPL perspective, and if you are looking for an Mbeumo or a Wissa, I think they showed that they're still great FPL candidates. Wissa again picking up those pockets of space in great positions with the great footballing IQ he has, that he's able to sort of get into those positions. We did predict 2+ goals scored in this game, just snuck over the line with a 2-0 Liverpool win late, but was a correct prediction for this week. On to Arsenal, Aston Villa, and of course I do have the tactical deep dive into Arsenal coming up after this. 2-2 was again sort of a game of two halves really. The first half, Arsenal actually looked relatively good from an attacking perspective. I thought they played well. They did manage to create some issues for Villa, particularly down Arsenal's left, which I thought was interesting. I think a lot of the season they have focused on that right-hand side. You know, when Saka was available and even post-Saka, it was natural for them to be trying to flow their attacks down that right-hand side. But with the introduction of Lewis Skelly at left-back, he's really provided a sort of an attacking impetus to Arsenal teams with his forward runs, his inversions, and Trossard again was good going down that wing. He was getting into those pockets just inside the 18-yard box, which I think is so difficult to defend as you can't dive in, you can't fully commit. And he was able to cut balls back into the box and put crosses in that caused some problems for Villa and ultimately resulted in a couple of goals for Arsenal. Defensively, without Saliba, Arsenal just didn't quite have that same coordination at the back, with Timber playing at centre-back and Thomas Partey at right-back, and that sort of showed in the second half through the goals. The first goal with Marino really in that sort of defensive midfield role, you see from like maybe a Gravenberch at Liverpool or what Rodri used to do at Man City. Their role was to snuff out that danger, and Marino just wasn't able to do that. He didn't track the run from Tielemans all the way into the box. Tielemans got a steal in there and finished off a nice cross from Digne. And obviously Saliba suffering with a minor muscle injury, it was said. They had Timber at centre-back and Thomas Partey at right-back, who for that second Aston Villa goal, he's not used to playing in that position. I think Thomas Partey's a fantastic player, but in central midfield more so than at right-back, and he tried to step up for the goal, and Watkins was just there free at the back post to finish off and get that second goal. And I think, again, it showed the sort of inconsistencies in Arsenal's defence this season, and their inability to sort of close out games has been an issue. So yeah, it was unfortunate for them, but Villa did manage to get back in the game. And this sort of leads me on to our initial deep dive for Arsenal, where, look, they have great XG for the predominance of games, but do the stats really show it all? In this first main larger picture, you can see highlighted the games where Arsenal have recorded more XG than their opponents, which is the majority of games this season. However, if you do look down past sort of Crystal Palace game, they have started in some of those games to tail away, and that does coincide with my other stat sort of on the right hand side here, which is Arsenal in matches without Saka, and you can see just in the 7 games before and after Saka's injury, the difference in expected goals for Arsenal and what they've managed to create with him out of the side than with him in the side. And I think what we've seen from Arsenal this season, and what I want to talk about firstly, is their build-up play has been carefully constructed by Arteta, and you can see actually that they do move the ball slowly up the field really well from the back, and they do then manage to push their opposition back and are able to keep possession in those sort of attacking areas, and that's why their sort of possession stats are so high. And you can see the possession stats before and after Saka are still quite similar. However, they do just seem to be unable to sort of break teams down since that injury, and I've highlighted sort of 2 reasons for this. One is Odegaard and the triangle, and 2 is Havertz and the Arsenal front 3, and we'll go on to this now. If we go on to the triangle with Odegaard, and you see on the left-hand side and the right-hand side here are really 2 triangles. We'll call the one on the right square, with Declan Rice getting involved as well. But you see Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, and the right back, either Ben White or Jurriën Timber in those two examples, have sort of built up a really, like Ben White especially, a great understanding. Then Timber, before that Saka injury, was really starting to build up a great understanding of when to sort of overlap and push into those spaces. Saka would draw defenders towards him, and then that would open up spaces for Odegaard and Rice, etc., to be able to play those passes in behind. And they worked really well in that sort of triangular position. And now without Saka, which is where on that right-hand side, you can see that it's created a lack of ability for Arsenal to be able to get into those dangerous positions behind the defence while they're in possession and sort of create those chances from those difficult positions. And what I think I talk a little bit about later is the fear factor that Saka provides, and that draws those defenders out towards him. And that is one of the reasons why, with him out of the side, Martinelli sort of doesn't quite carry that same threat, and also doesn't have that same link up and understanding that he had with Odegaard and White or Timber. So that leads us sort of nicely to number 2, which is Havertz and the Arsenal front 3. So Havertz, Trossard and Martinelli mostly playing in that front 3. Occasionally you'll see Raheem Sterling maybe coming in there as well. And the youngster Nwaneri obviously is a separate matter, I think. He's just started to come in. And if you look at the big teams in the Premier League, you've got Liverpool with a Salah, Haaland for Man City, Isaac for Newcastle. All of these teams have a player who the opposition fear. And that is what Arsenal had when Saka was in that team. And as I was saying, that was why they were able to create those dangerous positions down that right-hand side in that sort of triangle offence. And the fear in those players and the opposition knowing that they're able to have a moment of magic, beat a player one-on-one, is what causes the teams to make mistakes or potentially overcommit to that player, and then that brings space for other players. That's something that Messi used to employ at Barcelona frequently. When teams would look to man mark him, he would sometimes drift out wide. You see that also for Palmer at Chelsea, that Maresca's implementing. Sometimes Palmer drifts a little bit out wide. That gives space for Enzo to push on through the midfield. And that was something that Saka brought to the Arsenal team. It created spaces for the other players, and Odegaard was somebody who was able to then thread those balls nicely through the gap. Without Saka in that team, it allows opposition teams to sort of just happy playing in their low blocks or their defensive structures, and it's not as complicated for them. They don't have to double up on a player. They don't have to change their positional area because they see Saka unmarked or Saka moves into a different position. They will stick to their structures. And yet having that person who is that threat just also breeds confidence within your own teams. You know you've got that special player that can always make something happen. And that is something that's lacking at the moment in that Arsenal front 3. The confidence of the front 3 is just not quite there at the moment, and they do need something to pick them up. And I thought they were, I mean, Trossard especially, was a little bit better for Arsenal this week. He's often struggled when he's been brought in to start games. He's often been very dynamic off the bench and impactful for Arsenal. I think the Jesus injury was a real big blow to them, because he was somebody who had got into great form very early on in the game weeks and was causing trouble for defences, scored a few goals, and just when he was starting to find form, obviously got that long-term injury. So that was a bit of a blow for them. And I think ultimately, in essence, the question that a lot of people have been saying is do Arsenal need a striker to win the league? And I think the answer is actually no. But do they need somebody the opposition fear? And the answer is yes. So I think with Saka out at the moment, and the longer he remains out for, January becomes a big time for Arsenal and a big moment for them. And can they bring someone in to sort of strike that fear in the opposition? Given that Liverpool have been continuing to drop points recently, there is still plenty of time in the season to turn it around. Don't think that they're out of it yet, but they need to sort of strike that fear into the opposition, open up their spaces for their other players, and for Odegaard to pick those passes. And I think that's what Arsenal need to be successful at the moment. So that was our deep dive on Arsenal. We will also go on to Man City in a second. The two sort of games I want to talk about here is Nottingham Forest v Southampton. 3-2 win again for Nottingham Forest, in second place in the table. Are they legitimate title contenders? I mean, I think it's tough for Nottingham Forest to be able to win the title, but for sure it's not impossible with the way they've played. I think it will take an injury to someone at Liverpool for them to be able to go on and overtake them, because I just think Liverpool won't drop enough points over the course of the season for Nottingham Forest to take them out. And I just don't think Forest will be able to go on the sort of run that they need to win the league. But I think the top four is looking a real likelihood for Nottingham Forest this season. I think that is definitely something they should be aiming for as well. They've been playing absolutely fantastically so far this season. And the 3-2 win over Southampton another good result for them. I think, despite conceding 2 there, I think their back 4 is absolutely fantastic. Perhaps later in the season I'll do even more of a deep dive on Forest as well and their tactics and why it's been so successful. A different style of play, mirroring a style of play to what Leicester had back in the season, where they were so successful winning the title. They've got that really well knit back 4. Milenkovic ultimately is the one that goes to the balls, commits to the header, gets really tight to that first player and uses his physical presence to try and win that aerial battle. Murillo often drops off a little bit, uses his pace so that if the opposition striker does win the ball, he's able to cover around the back for any runners coming through. I think Aina and Nico Williams / Moreno at times, I think more so Nico, possesses those dribbling abilities actually to beat a press out wide on the wing and then be able to start straight away one of Nottingham Forest's fast counter-attacks. And another way that they're able to do that, and I think they're clearly very well coached at how to quickly spring out from defence. I would say that Nottingham Forest also play out from the back like other teams, but just at speed. And Murillo is really important for them sometimes in their defence at doing that. Is often he looks to dribble past that sort of initial player in the press, and then he will either hit those sort of long diagonals out to the wingers or the 10s in a sort of 3-4-2-1, but a winger in the sort of 4-3-3, or as he dribbles past that first player, one of the midfielders will have to step up to come to him, and that opens up spaces in the middle where he can put those passes into the Nottingham Forest midfielders to be able to start those attacks. So I think that's just really interesting about how Nottingham Forest look to spring forwards quickly from their defence. They're still sort of playing out, but it's just a faster style of pushing the ball quickly, trying to break an initial part of the press and hit those sort of balls through into the midfield. And again, I think Chris Wood is ultimately at the end of a lot of those attacks, either trailing the play from an Elanga or a Gibbs White running at pace, carrying the ball, or being ultimately someone they look to cross the ball into. So Nottingham Forest, excellent season for them. We did go for a clean sheet this week, but didn't manage to get that right. Man City v Ipswich. Now Man City did get a 6-0 win against Ipswich this week, and no, on the question on everyone's lips is, have they solved their attacking issues? Obviously KDB and Foden sort of interchanging on the right, Doku, Savio on the left. Haaland's confidence is starting to return a little bit, but what I am seeing is those defensive fragilities do remain despite those clean sheets, and I am seeing that Ipswich are a team that you must target. And guys, I'm just about to go on to this Man City deep dive. If you are enjoying the content, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We've just recently hit 1k. I really appreciate you guys' support. We're just a small channel at the moment. We're trying to grow through, so hit subscribe, like the video, and keep watching for all this good stuff that you're getting. Onto that sort of deep dive on Manchester City, where we're going to be addressing all those points I just mentioned. Firstly, from a defensive perspective, I think their defensive issues do remain a little bit unresolved. Maybe we'll talk about the attack first. I think it's nice to start with that sort of positive for Man City. They just got a 6-0 win this week. The attacking issues you see, if you look at the top left of your screen here, this was their sort of old setup, so to say, roughly, where Savinho was playing on the right wing, and then they interchanged sort of a Doku, a Grealish, sometimes even Foden out on that left-hand side. And what would happen there is Savinho, when he got the ball, was cutting into the space on his left foot and looking to get a shot off at goal. And he would then cut into the space where Foden occupies in that sort of 10 role, or occasionally De Bruyne when Foden moved over. And that would really narrow City's attacking potential. And what teams had been employing as well previously with City was sort of a back 5 with one man marking on Haaland to try and stop him. And the fact that City sort of narrowed their space and were playing quite centrally meant that ultimately the teams with either a back 5 or teams like Aston Villa that played with a really narrow box in the midfield, like a box 4, were able to just allow City to have it out wide, because they were always looking to come inside and threaten through there and pack that middle area, and that wasn't allowing City the space to be able to play those intricate passes they're good at, get Foden into those nice areas, get Savinho into those nice areas, and be able to get space for Haaland in the box. Now, what's happened in the new formation, you see that Savinho's moved over to the left-hand side here. They've moved Foden out to the right. Him and De Bruyne have sort of interchanged on that right wing role. And what's happened here is that Savinho on the left wing, now when he's looking to take on his players, he's taking them on down the wing, and he's able to put those crosses into the box for Haaland, who's obviously such an imposing figure in that box. He's able to get on the end of some of them using his physicality and his strength. And also Savinho is able sometimes to just sort of get into those 18-yard box areas, look for those cutbacks as well after being his man. And that is exactly on the right-hand side what City are also trying to do, with De Bruyne sometimes moving out to that right wing role, putting in those beautiful crosses he's able to do into Haaland in the box again, opening up possibilities there. And then you've got Phil Foden, who's able to manoeuvre into those sort of inside 18-yard box spaces, where back in the Mahrez days and the Sterling days, that's where City's attack was so tough, and they made those chances, and it was so tough to deal with. When they were able to get inside those 18-yard box spaces, you couldn't touch them. They had great technical ability, and they were able to play those cutback balls, find those little pockets of space. And that's exactly where Phil Foden's been popping up for City lately, and why he's managed to score a few goals as well, because him, De Bruyne, etc. have all been sort of moving around in those sort of half spaces there. And now he's got a little bit more space to work in, with De Bruyne stretching the play out right. He's got that little bit more space in the middle, rather when Savio was cutting inside, and they both were there drawing defenders in. So I think that's really opened up possibilities for City, and clearly you can see they're much better going forward. I think these last couple of wins should breathe a little bit of positivity into their camp, and it will reduce the mental fatigue that's really been put on the players and Guardiola himself. And you can see that hopefully that will bring more positivity into their camp, especially Guardiola in his interviews has been quite negative. I think that had also impacted the team. So hopefully this will bring back that positive atmosphere at Man City, and they can kick on from an attacking perspective. Now, defensively, I do think City have not resolved the issues that we've seen, that we've been seeing so far this season. I think obviously Ipswich, just maybe don't have the firepower and the ability to cause them as many problems. However, they were still finding problems on the counter. And like what you can see in this sort of picture is, you can see where I have poorly highlighted with red circles was supposed to be the sort of City defensive midfielders in like a Kovacic, I think what you could say is basically the position that often Rico Lewis would take up. And they often have been getting caught ahead of the ball frequently for Man City in attacks, which has left those big holes in between the defence and the midfield, which has been exploited by so many teams. And the Man City defence lately has actually, like, the defenders have been defending a little bit deeper because they're worried about being exploited for pace with other teams counter-attacking. But what that has left when Kovacic and Rico Lewis have been sort of getting forwards in attack, they've left that big gap in between where teams have been able to exploit. And you can see João Pedro here has picked up the space in between the midfield and the attack. And what happens here is that means that the centre-backs for Man City are not sure whether to step up and get forwards and commit to those players that are getting in between the lines, or to back off and defend. And that means that the fullbacks for Man City are having to tuck in and cover narrow, which is leaving this space out wide for the teams to be able to attack. And you saw in that Brentford game against Man City that Mbeumo was frequently left with loads of space out wide on the right, and it was just unbelievable that he didn't manage to return in that game. And here we're seeing it with Man City again. Guardiola's having to tuck in from left back to cover the space, Obviously, the right back has inverted into central midfield and hasn't been able to get back in time that often. And yeah, these have been causing problems for Man City defensively frequently. And now with Kyle Walker out of the side, he was someone who would often slot back into a back three for City. And then that would allow Guardiola to roam down that left-hand side. Now with sort of a Lewis or a Nunez playing there, Guardiola's the one who's having to tuck into the back three. And I think he's just not sure where to be positionally. Frequently you'll see him sort of caught in between attack and defence, and that leaves with Man City with only two central defenders defending, especially when Rico Lewis is playing on the right back role, moves into that sort of defensive midfield role, or Nunez also pushes on into the right wing sort of position. So those are the sort of defensive issues that it's costing them. And Man City's one-on-one defending has not been great without Ruben Diaz in that side. I've seen like when people have been attacking Vardio one-on-one, all he's been doing is backing off all the way into the penalty area. And what they really need is to just engage the player a little bit higher up the field before they get into that 18-yard box, because as soon as they get into that 18-yard box, you can't touch them, and they're causing Man City so many problems. And I just think on the counter-attack, those defensive midfielders you need at least one of them behind the ball to be able to cut off those players that are getting in between the Man City lines and springing those fast counter-attacks. That allows their fullbacks to stay a little bit wider, gives their defence a bit more protection, and doesn't mean that there are these big gaps out wide for Man City as well as in between the lines. It's not something they've solved yet, and I do expect to see Man City to continue to concede goals going forwards. And therefore I would say defensively I wouldn't be looking at any of their assets. However, from this attacking perspective, I do think Phil Foden is a really interesting asset now for Man City going forwards over the next few games. Sorry, not over the next few games, but going forwards for Man City. It's just unfortunate over those next few games, Man City have a really tough run of fixtures at the moment. So it's Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Tottenham up for them in their next 5. And I think really maybe heading into that game week 27, 28, that might be where I'd be looking to bring in a Phil Foden for their sort of nice fixture run. Savio for me, him and Doku rotating a little bit on that left-hand side at the moment. Again, you just can't trust the Pep rotation until I see him start more and more games. I'm not sure whether I could pick him into my side at the moment, given that Pep difference. All right, guys. Been going for a while on this tactical one, so maybe I'll just finish quickly with Chelsea v Wolves, because I know one of my subscribers, Big Al, wanted me to talk about Nicholas Jackson. Shout out to you, Big Al. So this is why I've included this finally on this sort of tactical observations piece before we get onto the statistical analysis. I think Nicholas Jackson, again, and you'll see as we go into the statistics, is still picking up those great positions for Chelsea. He did manage to score in this game against Wolves, but it was offside. And to be honest, like, he's honestly somebody that I still think is a really nice option, and not somebody that I would be looking to sell. If anything, somebody that I would still consider bringing into the team for the next 6 games. I think Chelsea have a really nice fixture on. Man City, West Ham, Brighton, Villa, Southampton, Leicester over the next 6. Still a really nice run of fixtures for Chelsea, and maybe it's 29 where, well, maybe 30 to 29, 30 is where I'd look to sort of move him onwards. Having said that, I do think that if he is somebody that's costing you a lot of money in your team and you're wanting to use those funds elsewhere for sort of bigger hitting options and to more well round out your team, he is somebody that you can use as a cash cow to move out of and move into maybe a Chris Wood, maybe a Johan Wissa, saving that sort of 2 million and being able to spread those funds elsewhere in the team. Perhaps lining up towards sort of an assistant manager, or making sure you've got the players that you want in your midfield. So look, I think Nicholas Jackson is still a good option. I would still keep him unless you need the money. Then I think you can use him as a sell. His finishing's just not been on point, but I think his importance in Chelsea's build-up is crucial, and therefore I don't expect his minutes to allow him to be moved out of the starting lineup just because he's not scored goals. He's really crucial in their press, as a trigger man, and I think his understanding and link up with Palmer is really fantastic. And all that's been missing over the last few games is his finishing, which hopefully, if he scores a goal, often with strikers, 1 brings 2, brings 3, and their confidence can come back, and hopefully he can continue to score some goals. Mark Cucurella is somebody that I just wanted to bring up. I thought he's really interesting at the 10, left back position. But the way he inverts into that 10 role, I've been talking about a little bit this season. Obviously, one of Maresca's many tactics that he's implemented. He often inverts forwards into attacking midfield, gets himself into the box, gets himself into those attacking positions. Definitely someone you can think of, maybe as sort of the differential defender pick that does have that high upside of potentially scoring goals. I'm not too big on the Chelsea defence in terms of clean sheets, so you'll have to be a bit more confident than I am on their ability to keep clean sheets going forwards. Finally, Matheus Cunha. He's still the key guy for Wolves, but I just think Wolves have such a difficult fixture run coming up over the next sort of 4 or 5 games. Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Fulham. He's someone that I would look to move out of my team over that period, and then potentially bring back in a 28-29, where he has a really lovely fixture run again through to 34. Everton, Southampton, West Ham, Ipswich, Tottenham, Man United and Leicester. Some really nice fixtures for Matheus Cunha. And I won't go through all of the games this week, just given that I did such a detailed view on that sort of deep dives, and I don't want to keep you guys too long in this video, as I know some people don't like to watch too long videos. I know some of you do really like this tactical analysis, so feel free to comment below if you've got any questions on any of the other games or players that you're interested in for game week 23, and I'll make sure to answer all the questions. I'll also be doing a live stream on Saturday where I'll be doing team reviews and answering all your transfer questions in that, so tune in to listen to that. I've also done a buy, sell, hold video, so if you are interested in that buy, sell, hold video, then I'll put a link to it up above. You can click that link and you can see all the players that I'm suggesting, buys, holds and sells, and I gave a little bit of insight into my tactics on chip strategy, which I'll probably be doing an update to my chip strategy video, which also you can check out on my channel, should be on the homepage. Still the same sort of strategy. I'll be doing an update in game week 24 after the EFL Cup, maybe game week 25 after the EFL Cup semi-final matches. So moving on to the statistical analysis, and we'll go on to the defenders first of all, who I think the best defenders are to be looking at the moment. And I mean, first up on this list, you can see right at the top of the list is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Non-penalty expected goals and assists of 0.38, the highest in the league. Look, I think his stats are obviously inflated. We've talked about this lots on this channel previously in the season, where I thought he was a sell, not a buy, and that lasted all the way up until maybe game week 22, where I changed my mind ahead of the double game week, the Ipswich fixture, 21-22, and I was talking about it was the time to bring Trent in after the Saka injury as well. You had a bit more funds in your team to be able to spend, and I think, although I don't think he is value for money, and I still think 7.2 million, he doesn't provide good value for money, I think he has a high upside potential, and for that Ipswich fixture, the double game week with Wolves and Bournemouth and Everton, and then Wolves in 25, I think they're really fantastic fixtures for him, and you want to have him in for that sort of run. After that, I'm happy with taking him out of your team again. I think you probably want to move him out onwards towards game week 29 if Liverpool make it through in the EFL Cup and blank in that week. So I think for now, Trent, good option. Get him into your team for the double game week. I think he's got a really high upside, and I like it. If you want to check, if you've got some questions on why his XA, XG is overrated, feel free to post in the comments or watch some of my previous video. Happy to give a little bit more detail on the reasoning behind that. I've spoken on it quite a bit this season. Robinson is the other guy that I think is really good value at the moment. 5.1 million, playing a super high role for Fulham. Has got 9 assists so far this season. As you can see from this list, the most out of any defender so far in the Premier League by a long way. and just he's been playing in such attacking positions for Fulham, really in that sort of left wing role at times for them. And Fulham also some reasonable fixtures coming up: Man United and tough one against Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, and Crystal Palace. Some reasonable fixtures. I think really good value. Obviously creating a lot for Fulham, and a lot of their attacking play goes down that left-hand side with Robinson and Iwobi linking up really nicely. He's definitely somebody I would look into. Next up on the list is, interestingly, a picture of Milenkovic with Daniel Munoz's name. So let's talk about both of them. Milenkovic for Nottingham Forest, I think I'd probably prefer at the moment as a pick over Munoz. Not because I don't think Munoz has the higher attacking upside, I definitely do. I think he gets into some superb attacking positions for Palace. Up that right wing, definitely has potential to be scoring attacking returns. However, I'm just concerned about that game week 29 at the moment. If Liverpool and Newcastle both make it through to the final, Palace are going to be someone who'll be blanking in that 29, and I don't want to be bringing in more players that do blank in 29. I think if you have Munoz in your team, definitely hold him. He's a really good player, and if I wasn't concerned about that game week 29 at the moment, he'd probably be higher on my list than Milenkovic, and somebody that I'd be looking to bring into the team, perhaps as a second or a third option after Trent alongside Robinson. So if you've got Munoz, I think he's a great option. Keep him in your side. He'll do really well for you over the next few weeks. If you don't, I think wait till after game week 24. Obviously Brentford, not an easy game for Palace anyway. Man United you can sort of get through, and then Everton is the game week where I would consider bringing in Daniel Munoz after we see the results of that EFL Cup semi-final. Milenkovic, I think, fantastic for Nottingham Forest. Obviously great defensively. If you are looking to bring in a defender this week, I think he's someone nice to bring in. Has a really nice fixture in game week 29 as well against Ipswich. And his fixtures over the next three are fine before Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City. So hopefully you can have a bit of rotation and move him out of your team for a few of those games. Finally on this list, I've got Lewis Hall. He obviously has that sort of high attacking upside on set pieces, corners for Newcastle, gets into those really high attacking positions, crossing the ball into the box for Isak, linking up really well down that left-hand side with Anthony Gordon, overlapping, underlapping, getting some great positions. Newcastle with a really nice fixture this week in Southampton. Hopefully he can also continue to keep some clean sheets. So for me, Lewis Hall is definitely someone you can look at. Similarly to Munoz, if you don't have him already, someone I'll probably hold off until 25, bringing into the team just because of that game week 29 issue. Midfielders, we obviously have the main two culprits, Mo Salah and Cole Palmer. Interestingly, just let you know, Cole Palmer's sort of non-penalty expected goals and assists has sort of remained quite stable over the last few weeks. Mo Salah's has dropped off a little bit, but still incredible statistics at the moment, with 1.08 non-penalty expected goals and assists per game. That is an expected goal or assist every single game for Mo Salah, and no wonder people are choosing to captain him every week. This week against Ipswich, they've just conceded 6 against Man City. I do think he is the best captaincy pick, and I will be captaining him this week. Cole Palmer, obviously, fantastic option, and we'll leave it there for those guys. Anthony Gordon at 7.7 mil is another guy that I really like for Newcastle. I think has some fantastic fixtures, really nice attacking upside. Definitely somebody I'd look at bringing into your team. I think you shouldn't worry too much about the game week 29 issues when it comes to those attacking players, because they have those much higher ceilings, and you want to just make sure that you have the best attacking players in your team at this moment, and you'll just have to manage game week 29 without some of these guys, or make those transfers later down the line. Anthony Gordon at the moment, 6 goals, 4 assists this season. His statistics have been increasing in terms of expected goals, assists over the last sort of 5-6 games as well. Definitely getting into nice positions for Newcastle. Newcastle with this high aggressive press with Tonali Guimaraes and Joelinton has also helped them pick up the ball in more dangerous areas, and Gordon be exposed to more chances there. Next up in this sort of like mid-price range, and these are the guys that I think are sort of the best around that sort of mid-price range. Phil Foden, I'm really liking Phil Foden at the moment for Manchester City. Obviously, I just spoke about him from a tactical perspective and why I thought he was such a great option. Again, statistically, Phil Foden has been increasing as we're going through the season. He's starting to play more minutes for Pep as well, and definitely somebody that I would look to bring into my team. Just the fixtures over the next 4, obviously tough for him. So that is why I probably would wait on Phil Foden. If you do have him in your team already, definitely a hold. He could prove to be a really nice differential for you over those 4 weeks if he manages to score goals against some of the bigger teams. But yeah, just not a bit too risky to attack those fixtures for me. When I think there are some other players that are nice. And then moving on to the sort of cheaper price options, we do have Ismail Assar here, 0.25 expected goals and 0.54 expected goals and assists. What I do think that's really interesting here is I think Ismail Assar with 4 goals and 3 assists is someone that can definitely get those attacking returns and goals, and I think he does have a little bit more goal threat than Eze in terms of how he sort of runs on beyond Mateta, and Eze sort of a little bit deeper, arrives later, maybe can score the longer range ones or the late arrivals into the box, whereas Sar's looking to run beyond and get those passes played through from Eze with more of an assist threat, I would say. I think it's a very interesting option. I think Palace again have a nice fixture run, especially from an offensive standpoint over the next 4. Definitely somebody I would consider at that sort of cheaper price point if you are looking for a player. Alongside him, Jacob Murphy, amazing statistics in that Newcastle lineup. If you don't quite have the money for Anthony Gordon, I think Jacob Murphy's a really nice option. Again, I wouldn't triple up on the attack if you already have Isak and Gordon, but if you don't have a Gordon, I think Murphy's a really good substitute at a cheaper price point. Has been getting the sort of 60-70 minutes per game in the starts. As you can see, started 15 of the 19 matches he's played this season, and Harvey Barnes is definitely sort of the rotation bench player at the moment in that Newcastle side. Other guys that maybe we can talk about briefly, Dango Atara at Bournemouth I think looks really nice. He's basically playing in the number 9 role for them up front. Bournemouth's fixtures get really nice from game week 25, and that is when I'd look to target maybe an Atara or a Kluivert. Probably not a Semenyo, I don't like him as much, but I think Atara and Kluivert could be really nice options for Bournemouth. Savio, we talked about in the Man City section. Luis Diaz, someone interesting. Liverpool with Diego Jota confirmed to be out for a few weeks. It's now that sort of 3-man rotation, him, Gakpo and Nunez. I think Luis Diaz is a really interesting option for that sort of game week 23, game week 24 double and Wolves. Could he play all of those weeks? He definitely could. He definitely has the highest upside, I think, of all the Liverpool attackers. If you do want to go for him, I think it's a risk, but I think it's a risk that could definitely pay off. Brennan Johnson for Spurs, I think it's just worth a shout out. Spurs have got some really nice fixtures over the next 4 games, as you can see here: Leicester, Brentford, Man United, Ipswich. Brennan Johnson is one of those guys who, although he looks awful and just doesn't really get involved in the game that much, just weirdly just has this nose for goal that he just pops up in the right place at the right time and manages to score a goal with being entirely useless in terms of build-up play for the entire game. And you can see that from his statistics here. 0.48 expected goals, but 0.56 expected assists and goals, which means his expected assist is 0.08 per game for the season, per 90 for the season. And as a winger, like, that's awful. You should be really providing stuff for your team. So you can see there, he's just got that great goal now, so he pops up in the right positions at the right time, often high XG chances because he just gets in the right place. So interesting option just to think about. I think Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo still nice options for Man United. Do you trust their consistency as the option, and which one do you go for is difficult. I think Bruno Fernandes, because of the penalties, is really nice. Obviously Amad Diallo, because of his great form, is nice, but does he often go back into that right wing back role when perhaps a Delo or a Mazraoui is rotated or unavailable? Those are the issues that you have to think about. Finally, Brian Mbeumo of Brentford. I think he's just probably one of the best options in that midfield at the moment. No blank game weeks, great fixtures over the next 4. His attacking statistics have actually been increasing over the last 5 to 6 games. He was previously down at 0.34 non-penalty expected goals and assists. And to add on top of that, you've got to remember that he does also have penalties for Brentford. So that is a little bit of a bump to his statistics if you include those. And that rounds out our midfielders. And I'll finish off with the forward line. And one more reminder to you guys, if you're enjoying this content, please hit subscribe, give us a like. Will really help boost our small channel. Thank you for those that are still watching at this stage. I know it's a bit of a longer video this week, but I just wanted to give you guys a bit more additional information this time round. Given the midweek, I was obviously away on holiday and couldn't get the usual videos out. Alexander Isak, number 1 for forward analysis. He is my number 1 pick. There is nobody better at the moment. Top of the expected goals and assists. Looks great tactically. Newcastle's target man. Unfortunately, lost his goal scoring record of scoring in I think it was 8 or 9 games in a row last week, but 15 goals, closing in on Erling Haaland at 17, and just looks magnificent. Nicholas Jackson we spoke about in the previous section. Chris Wood, I mean, what can you say about Chris Wood? He's just unbelievable. Look how low he is in this XG, but he is pivotal in Nottingham Forest's game plan, and that's why statistics don't always tell you everything. And that's why you need to think about tactically how he's being implemented in that team, why it is him that's ending up on the end of a lot of those chances, and why he's such a key figure for Nottingham Forest in the way they play. Chris Wood, fantastic option still. Look to keep him in your team. I think the next best option is honestly Yoane Wissa. If you don't have Brian Mbeumo, it makes it even more reason to go for Yoane Wissa. If you do, I still think a Brentford double up is a possibility given the amount of goals that they score. Wissa's the 4th top scoring striker after Haaland, Isak and Wood. Has got more goals than Matheus Cunha so far this season, and just has such great footballing IQ. He's definitely somebody I'd look to bring into my team. Solanke obviously out with an injury. He's a sell or an avoid this week. Matheus Cunha, although a great player, Wolves just have some tough fixtures. If you look Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Bournemouth over the next 4. For me, they're beginning to become some better striker options at the moment, so I would look to sell him. Potentially for Cody Gakpo, Darwin Nunez, maybe look for a Liverpool double game week player, or otherwise Yoane Wissa, Chris Wood, you could look to go for. Ollie Watkins as well rounds out that sort of conversational topics. Really nice run of 3 fixtures there. Scored in his last game, got back that starting spot from John Duran at the moment, scored again in his last fixture, most likely to start again for Aston Villa next week. I think could be an interesting differential. 10 goals and 4 assists this season, excellent returns for Ollie. His statistics also fantastic. So somebody not to be slept on this season. And if you don't have him, think carefully about why you don't have him, and see whether he fits into your team structure. And I have spoken through all of these guys, so I think I'll finish on one last thing there. Think this is sort of rounded out the tactical and statistical analysis that I want to go through this week. I will be doing a live stream. Please subscribe to the channel, please like the video. Thank you for watching all the way through. That really helps the YouTube algorithm more than anything else if you guys watch all the way through to the end. I keep joking about leaving it on play in the background, but I'm sort of joking, not joking. But obviously I much prefer you guys listening all the way through to the end. Thank you guys very much. Tune into the live stream on Saturday. I'll answer all your questions. I'll do team reviews for anybody that wants them. And of course I'll be responding to all the comments if you guys have any questions. Thanks so much guys. Have a great week. Good luck this week. Let me know your sort of captaincy decisions and any other questions that you have down below. Have a great week guys. This has been your English Aussie. See you later.